Hi, I'm Dr. Stefana Pecher, the Country Doc. Welcome to our 10th edition of High Stakes, an attempt to reach out to the community, education, and also offering some holistic solutions to the opioid crisis. I'd like to welcome our panelist back, Julie Banks, who's finally back from Florida. We missed you, Julie. And also we have a very special guest today, Bob Martin, a recovering addict, who has a tremendous story of success that we would like to share with you and show you that recovery truly is possible. So, miracles. So thank you, Bob.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, a pleasure. So tell us a little bit about your story. You and I have spoken before, and I know some of the details, but would you share with us how it all began?
Yeah. It all started very young. I grew up in a family. My mom was an alcoholic. My dad was 5 foot tall, so he was short. He hated that he was short. So there was issues. The biggest thing that probably happened to me though is that at around 8 years old, I was molested for several years. Not the kind of molesting like where somebody comes in. It was a relative. He was several years older than me. But it had a profound effect on me that I really didn't know until I got into recovery and started finding out, what had happened. Because for most of my life, I spent my life thinking that I sucked because I couldn't stop using, and I really didn't know why. And through all the treatment centers, I've been to 1 million treatment centers. They teach you a lot of stuff in those places, but you have to decide what really belongs to you and what doesn't belong to you, because not all of it does belong to me. Everybody has their own story, and I had to find what worked for me. And what I found out was that being molested, I thought that was like a thing between me and that person, and it was while it was happening. But after it happened, it got much bigger because I was let out into the world. And I had been, let's see, so when that kind of stuff happens, things happen. You start to think that nobody can take care of you, that there's nobody that is there for you. You start to think that at 8 years old, 9 years old, that you're on your own, because here you are in a place where your parents are in the downstairs playing cards, and upstairs you're being, abused. And you're wondering why they're downstairs and nobody's coming up to help you. And you also know that you can't say anything, because what are you going to say? They're going to, there's going to be conflict because there's families, my dad's friends. So that was that part of it. The big part that happened to me, where a lot of my sadness comes in, is that in order to, I learned something from a guy named Joe Gagliardo. He told me that my mind, that I talk to myself, and that self-talk is how I treat myself. He said, until you change that, nothing's going to change for you. So I had to come up with something that would work for me. And what I came up with was I met a clinician, and we had a conversation one day, and she said to me, I need you to start taking a look at the being abused. She said, I want you to read the newspaper, and I want you to come and tell me what you saw. So the next day I would come in, and I'd tell her the different articles that I saw. And she would say to me, Bob, did you see what was on page 1 down at the bottom over there? It was a pretty big article about somebody being molested. Yeah. Did you even see it? And it's like, no, I didn't even see it. And that's when I realized that I blocked it out. I blocked it out for all these years. And the harmful part for me is that I'm a loving and caring person, and it caused me to be harmful. There's two things that I've learned. There's two things that somebody that's been abused like I can do. Either you're gonna do it, or you're gonna run from it. I ran from it. What happened is I started to be, I can't find the right word. Abusive to women. And I hate to say that word because I don't want you to think that I ever hit a woman. And you don't have to hit a woman to abuse a woman. All you have to do is take advantage of them, and for your own personal gain. And that's what I did. The clinician said, Bob, I'm going to write down on a piece of paper all the men that I've slept with in my life. And she stopped at 3. And she said, I want you to go now. And
Ooh.
I was in my 70s,
Wow.
and I wasn't even slowing down yet. And so she stopped me. And she says,
70s?
Yes. She says, do you see?
Bob.
Yeah, I know. She says, do you see what, how inappropriate it was? And so there was that part of it. But that wasn't the hard part for me. The hard part for me was the understanding that I was a liar and a cheater and an abuser. I took advantage of them to get what it was that I needed, so I wouldn't feel the way I was feeling. What I didn't understand is that self-talk was telling me, sure you're not gay, Bob? You sure? And in my family, that would have been like the worst thing that could possibly happen. Can't even tell you what would have happened if I was to be gay, And so how did I do it? How did I justify things to myself? Is I just slept with women, got in relationships with women. The problem was I was just nobody that you really wanted to be in a relationship with, because of the way I lived my life. I didn't work, didn't do any of those things. But that's the one at this time, and 16, 17 years later, it's still very, very painful. I was able to finally get married 4 years ago. Yeah, it'll be 4 years in July of this year. I can't tell you the amount of work it had to do to just be with one woman at a time, and to have nobody on the side and nobody on my phone. My phone was this was a bomb. This was a ticking bomb that I had to keep on me, away from others all the time, because this is where all the inappropriateness was. And when you live on the street, you don't really know that it's inappropriate. You don't know that stuff's inappropriate. That's just the way things are going, and everybody's hurt. Everybody's hurt. Every single person out there is hurt in their own way. And we're all hurting each other, and you don't really know it. And I can understand why it's very difficult to stop, because when you stop, you have to face that. If you don't face it, I have a lot of experience with not facing it and being in recovery, and it just doesn't last. You cannot. I was not able to stay clean and have all that baggage with me. I had to get rid of it. And I got rid of it by helping other people. I've learned that this addict only was good at a couple things in life. Yeah, I can build you a house. I can do all those kind of things. 2 things I've been best at is getting high and helping other people. That's I don't know. I guess it's the compassion. No, addicts, people that are out there, are good people. Just didn't really have a chance. I mean, I had what people would consider good parents, but it was very difficult in my house with a mom drinking and a dad who had his issues and I had my issues. It's very complicated. An active, addictive family is really hard to get any traction on. I mean, I come from a good family. I barely made it out of high school because I would put no effort into it at all. Yes.
So Bob, let me just ask.
Yeah.
So you told your parents about this after it happened, like how many years after it happened? Like,
many years. Probably 17 years old is when I explained it to my dad. I told my dad about it, and
what did they say?
Well, he was very unhappy about it. That was my dad's best friend's son. So in order for, if my dad was going to say something, he was going to lose a friend. And you want to talk about another different kind of pain? It's when you find out that the friendship was a little more important.
Oh my gosh.
And so you're told things like, what do you want me to do about it? That was a long time ago. So why are you worried about it now? That's the excuse you're going to use now for getting high. Those kind that's what happened to me.
So basically, you started self-medicating for the pain, the post-traumatic stress disorder that this caused.
Yeah.
And how old were you when you started self-medicating?
9.
9 years old.
Yeah.
And what were you self-medicating with?
my mom's vodka. And then by 12 I was smoking pot. By 15 I was snorting cocaine, and by 24 was when my beginning of homelessness and just being on the streets.
So you were on the streets where?
New London, Hartford, Waterbury. It ended in Waterbury. Somebody from New London has no business in Waterbury. They're way more experienced in addiction. There's way more addicts out there. They're way meaner. I was lucky to make it out of there alive.
Really?
Waterbury's difficult. You know, Dutch Point in Hartford was a big place of mine, but mostly here in New London. I spent most of I could drive you around New London, and I don't think much has changed. You know, I work at Ocean Beach, which is on an end of New London, so every day I have to drive through right where I copped, and it all looks the same. The houses look the same, the faces have changed, but the people look the same, and you know, and people are still going like that, you know, nodding at you, waiting for you to nod back. You know, that's a whole nother world down there. You know, if you haven't been there, we have our own language. They have their own language. They have their own rules and regulations that you have to live by, and it's a community. Whether it's not a good community, but believe it or not, it's a different, you know, community. I used to be amazed sometimes how I would be heading to wherever it was I was homeless at. You know, I always seemed to be going in the other direction. Everybody seemed to be going to work, and I seemed to be heading home. You know, it was a full-time job for me. It was all I did. It's the only thing I did. I didn't do anything else. There came a time when being employed was just impossible. You know, and that was my employment. You know,
being homeless?
Yeah,
was your employment?
That was my job. Was getting drugs. That was the only thing that really mattered to me. Was the next hit. That food didn't matter. Children didn't matter. You didn't matter. You didn't matter. I would take whatever I needed from you. However I could manipulate it from you, I would do the same to you. You know, I got very good at telling what people were like before they even got to me, because it was very, very important for me to figure out how to get from them what I needed, because I was not a functioning addict. I didn't function like go to work at here and then go home and get high. That wasn't my job. That wasn't my life. I decided to go farther than that. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days. I only had one thing I needed to do, and that was to get crack. Now, what it took to get it was, that's where the rub is. That's where all the problems were, the arrests, all that stuff.
So what did it take to obtain it?
Well, my big thing was, I'll tell you what here's a day in Waterbury. I would get up in the morning around 11 o'clock if I went to sleep. But every morning I would go across the green and I would go to the soup kitchen. And I would get whatever meal that they had at the soup kitchen. I would leave there. I would go to Sports Authority. And I would take 2 paintball guns and I would get out of the store with them. I was very good. I was very good at shoplifting. So I would take those 2 guns and I would go to this place called Masler's Pawn Shop, and I would pawn them off. It would be $100. I would go get the cocaine. I would go back to where I lived, or where I was, you know, whatever homeless place I was at. I always had a girl, and I guess I'll get into that in a minute. But so I would go there. I would go back. We would get high, and I would leave, and I'd go to Home Depot, and I would steal something from Home Depot, and I'd bring that and all day long. So it led me to a problem. What do you do at night when all the stores close? That's where the women came in. So I stole during the day, and they did what they do at night. So therefore, I was able to get high 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The habit was probably about 900 a day between me and her. That's how much work we had to put in to get there, you know, to get through a day. Everybody abuses everybody. Everybody takes advantage of everybody. I wrote a letter in treatment one time, and the letter said that, you know, if I wake up in the morning and my money's gone and my drugs are gone, I'm not even going to be mad at you. I'm going to know why you did it, because you were hurting. And you know, just heroin's not the only one that makes you hurt. You know, heroin makes you sick, but being without whatever drug your choice is, being without it is painful. You know, if it's hard to get somebody that's not an addict to understand. You know, the only thing I could say is that, you know, like me and you could sit down and eat a cupcake, and you can just have 4 or 5 bites of the cupcake and that's the end of it. Well, after I've taken my first bite of that cupcake, I'm already wondering, how the hell am I going to get the next cupcake? That's what my life's about. My life's about next. That's all that mattered. Because what I had in my hand, it was already gone as far as I was concerned, because it was going to be gone in a few seconds. And then I'm going to be without. And there was nothing scarier than that to me, was to come down. And no, crack doesn't make you physically sick, but you know what when your mind's telling you, Bob, what are you doing? Will you get out there and get me some more? And it just doesn't let you alone. It's the most brutal thing in my mind that my mind has ever had to deal with is the coming down off of cocaine. And there are a lot of people that are heroin addicts now because we would use heroin to come down. And next thing you know, you're addicted to heroin. And so, you know, if you've never experienced it, please don't. But there's a lot to learn from us.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it rewires your brain. So that's the pain part. I think that your brain becomes rewired, and then it's going to take a very long time to settle things down.
We don't tolerate pain well as addicts.
No. Any kind.
None. Zero. So we have to learn how to tolerate some.
Right.
So what changed for you? How did it change?
So I came out of prison. I had done 10 months, and I had to so I took a look at what was going on and how I was doing things. So here's Narcotics Anonymous is where I got clean. And here's what I used to do, and this is why I relapsed. I would go and I would hang out with all the people that were like me, that had like a day clean and 5 days clean, and we would all talk about, you know, how we were going to get clean and all that we knew about recovery, and you know, we thought we were going to for sure get clean. What we didn't realize is that we didn't know what the heck we were doing. So we would all be, you know, I'd go pick everybody up, we'd go to a meeting, and one person would say, hey, I got high up in that house there, and next thing you know, addicts like to glorify our stories. We like you to know how bad we were out on the streets. I was the toughest, I was the whatever, the coolest, and that's what happened with me. We would, next thing you know, one of us reach in our pocket, pull out a $20 bill, and all of us are high. So when I got out of prison, I decided not to hang around with anybody that had less than a year. So I'd go to a meeting, and if you raised your hand, when they said anybody with a year or more, if you raised your hand, we were immediate friends. If you didn't raise your hand, please don't even talk to me, because there's nothing that we can do for each other right now, and I knew that. I had lost enough times to understand that. When you hang around with people that have clean time, you just automatically just seem to slide with them. You know, if you've been an addict, it's easy to slide with the drug addicts. It's just as easy to slide with the recovering addicts, except for that they're more willing to help you. And they're not trying to steal from you. And they're not worried about your man or your girl or your money. They're just honestly just want to help you. And that's what I did. I hung with them, and they told me that if you don't help another addict, you will eventually fall. And that you better find a higher power. We don't really care what it is, but if there's not something greater than you in this world, then you're in a lot of trouble. So I started looking at things, and if you watch, I don't know if it's just me, but I like watch this wide view of the world. So sometimes something happens over here, and you remember something over here, and it's like, so that's how that happened, you know? That's how they got there, and you start to see that what happens if you string days together. See, if you string clean days together, there's nothing in the world that can stop you. Nothing. Because you already know how hard things can be. So hard work has always been. I've always worked hard. Let me tell you, it is not easy to procure $900 worth of cocaine on a daily basis every single day. So I started, so I hung around with them people, and next thing you know, I was them. And then I started bringing people with me. And when you got in my car, if you started talking to me about Flacco's house up there, I would immediately let you know that, do you remember the end of Flacco's house? Do you remember when Flacco kicked you out and put you on the streets because you didn't have any money anymore? That's the change. The change was realizing that, Bob, every single time, and I was talking with you earlier about it, there were times that I would wake up in the morning with 60 days clean. get on my knees, ask for help. Somehow, I was homeless by 7 o'clock that night because I had nothing to battle this disease with. I had no knowledge. I had all the knowledge in the world. I didn't know that all I had to do was say no. And by going to NA for that year and hanging around with those people, I got to see a different part of life that I didn't even know existed. I used to know it. I recognized it. It just hadn't been in part of my life. And I'm not even going to tell you that I wanted it. I just know I wanted different than what I had. I just didn't want to do that anymore, you know. And so 1 year led to 2 years led to 5, and you know. And I can remember like walking on air, going up to pick up those medallions, because I had been everything was failure for me. But that's success. I don't know if that's why they do the key tags, but I know they do. Part of it is so somebody else that has less time can see that it's possible. Okay, well that's cool if you got something out of it, but really I needed to take what I could get for me out of it. They tell you it's a selfish program, even though you're supposed to help a lot of people. I had to help me. The one person, I was always good at helping other people. I was never good at helping me. The only thing I knew how to do to me was destroy me. Any success, being molested, destroys it. I would wreck it. I would tear it down. I don't care how good of a job I got. I don't care how good of a girl, how good of a house, how good of a car, none of it mattered, because inside here was still a mess. And if you don't know what the mess is, then you're certainly not going to find your way out of it. And that's pretty much what went on. And it's still what goes on, you know. And I've had, you know, I don't know where you want to go with this, but I've had some difficulties. I've had to make some really, really hard choices in recovery that some people in recovery would say isn't a good choice. But for me, it was a good choice. I was ready for the next part of my life. I mean, do you want me to explain that part?
Yeah, I think let's just clarify one thing. So you were in and out of rehabs how many times over those years? How long did this take, just so that we can...
Yeah, my parents brought me to SCAD at 17 years old, because they didn't know what to do at that point. And I was not a troublemaker. I just got high. I didn't come home. I was not out there doing bad things, but I did that. So at 17, I went to my first treatment center, and it was SCAD, and I used to have to go every day after school for a couple of hours. There was a clinician. We would talk. I have been to SCAD. I probably detoxed at SCAD, I don't know, 60, 70 times.
Really? Over how long of a period?
From 17, I finally got clean at 42. 40, okay. I haven't used since 42 in that way. So I've been to Benesky Treatment Center, which was on the property of North State Hospital. I was there 4 times. SCAD has a male facility called Lebanon Pines. It's a long-term facility. I've been there 7 times. I have spent many summers, entire summers there. Sometimes my treatment there would be 6, 8 months. Rushford Treatment Center. I've been to a lot of treatment. I know how to do institutional, and then there's the jail bids too, which is another part of being institutionalized.
And your parents paid for that, or
no,
how did that?
The state has taken care of. The state took care of me when I was unable to take care of myself. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you're an addict, people and institutions have to pick up the slack for you. You know, other people had to raise my children. You know, that's that kind of stuff. I never got food stamps and any of that kind of stuff. But you know, treatment's not cheap when you're sending somebody that many times. You know, one of the proud things I'm able to say is that I sit here as a tax-paying citizen. You know, and it almost brings me to tears to say that to you. You guys get that? You ever get that thing from the Social Security where it tells you how much money you've made every year?
Yeah, it comes yearly.
And what you're expecting?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, from 1980 to 2002, probably 14 of those years were at least 14 zero. I made 0. It's very embarrassing. I have no pensions. I have nothing. I'm in fear for the last part of my life, financially. But today, I work and I pay my taxes. I make amends. Can't make amends all the time the way you'd like to. Home Depot, I stole from every Home Depot from here to Maine. The way I make amends to them is I won't buy anything from Lowe's. I will only spend my money at Home Depot. Certainly not going to walk in there and say, listen, you got me for the 14 times, but the other 2,000 times you didn't catch me, so I do it that way. It's important. It's important for an addict to make amends.
Indeed.
It is, no, it's more important. It's not important. It is, you have to do it. You have to do it.
Yeah.
You have to make amends.
Well, it's complete spiritual awakening, Bob.
Complete.
That's what you're
It is. And you
sharing
have
with
integrity
us.
today, and when you didn't, because you were acting out of a wounded place.
Right.
Your pain was driving you.
Everywhere.
Right? And not anymore, though.
No.
Yeah.
No, I've, when I got clean, I got a job. I was lucky enough to get a job at Stonington Institute. So I did the maintenance there for 9 years. And in 9 years, I didn't miss, one of the problems with being an addict is you don't like to go to work. And I can't tell you how many people stood outside my door in the beginning of my addiction thinking that I was going to make it to work. And I'm inside with a pipe in my mouth. So I made it to work at Stonington, and I worked there 9 years and never missed a day of work in those entire 9 years. And I showed up in every day, and I helped every single day. And I'm really, I'm really proud of myself.
We're proud of you.
I believe that if you saw me and you don't know me, that you would not know that about me. I don't mind that. I wouldn't mind. I'll tell you. I'm not embarrassed by it. I'm a really good person because I've been through a lot of stuff, and I've seen and felt a lot of pain. I've seen my pain. I felt it. I felt your kind of pain. I felt a lot, and I just have a compassion for anybody that's trying to do better. I don't really care what it is. You have to learn. I had to learn that. Here's a big one that I learned is that judgment of other people. I was a very judgmental person, and here's how I look at it now. And this is through recovery. Is that I'm not perfect, and neither are you. And I would get mad at people that were imperfect in a different way than me. I don't mind you having the same issues that I have, but I couldn't identify with people that had other types of issues until I realized that they're all the same. They're just my issues, your issues. So now I'm able to live without being like mad at anybody. You make mistakes in your area. I make mistakes in my area, like leaving my phone on.
That's okay.
I make mistakes in my area. So you know what? Now I'm able to be in this world with everybody.
Yeah.
Now I'm friends with everybody. You can do whatever you want for a living. I don't care. As long as you're happy and doing what you do for you and you're helping at least one other person in your life, I'm good with you, and if you're not, then we just have to help you some more. That's all. It's all about, one of the things I'm learning, I've known you for a few days, and you probably put more hours in than anybody that I've talked to in a long time. It takes that, and this business is not easy.
No, I
Recovery, trying to help people that are struggling to help their own selves has got to be one of the most difficult things that you can do. I mean, sometimes you got to help people that don't even want it. You just got to do it though, because everybody deserves somebody to try to help them. Because I don't know if anybody just goes down there because that's what they feel like doing. I know. I have a lot of friends on the streets that 3 generations of addicts. So they never even had a chance. When you talk to them about recovery, it's like, I am in recovery. My dad died. I'm not dead. No, you're not in recovery. You're not in recovery. You're missing out on a whole world. There's a whole world out there you don't know nothing about. Yeah. So I'm very proud of my life. I like what I do. I like this. I'm here. Look at me. Look at me. Here with you guys.
You're a miracle.
It's wonderful. It's really.
Look at me.
Really.
You're really
So thanks for having me.
very proud of you.
Yeah, we appreciate your honesty.
So
a lot of hope. You give a lot of people
yes,
a lot of hope.
that's it. And that's when I met Bob. I was like, oh my gosh, you have to share your story because so many people feel it's hopeless.
Yeah.
But it's not hopeless.
It's not hopeless.
Not even close.
No.
But it's not free either. It's not free.
Yeah, it
Recovery
took a
is
lot
not
of
free.
work.
Don't think that. Please, if you're trying to recover, it's not free. Doesn't cost you any money, but man, better get ready. Get ready for some work because what it took to get you there, however many years you were carried yourself into those woods, and however deep you got into those woods, it's not easy to come out. But man, it is so enjoyable. So enjoyable. The not even the end, the process of healing is so, I don't know, therapeutic's a good word, but for me, it just felt good.
Yeah, well, it's cool because there are people there to support you in shining the light on those dark places, and they're going to walk with you through that darkness into the light.
And
so
that's important, like you
right.
said. That's what it's all
so
about.
it doesn't have to be so scary.
No.
Because it is scary when you think that, there's no hope.
No.
And I can't do this because it's too dark.
Yeah. Can it just be how many days you just walk around the streets just wishing? I never, ever, ever thought for 1 second of harming myself. But I'll tell you what, there was a million days that I thought, man, wouldn't it be nice if somebody just veered to the right a little bit while I'm walking down these streets? Just a little bit. Just tip me, just hit me,
Well, that wasn't your path.
Wasn't my path. I was able
How
to
did you survive? Because that's really, did you ever overdose and have to have resuscitation performed?
Never. I've been around a lot of it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't, my not liking needles kept me away, and since I've been honest, let me not lie about that too. So crack people and heroin people are different. We don't really understand each other. I never understood why anybody would want to spend money on a drug that it takes money just to get even. Not even high yet, you're just trying to not be sick in the morning, I liked to get high. I wanted to get high from that very first hit. I didn't want to have to get unsick. So I stayed away from heroin. But the problem is that all my friends are dying because because crack has gone to the side a little bit, and heroin, most everybody that I'm in contact with, it's heroin now.
Well, people die from cocaine and crack as well. I mean, all kinds. How did you make it? Some divine light?
Indeed,
God,
he wasn't meant to go out that way.
Yeah.
I mean, if I can. One day I was on this. I was on this street, Bishop Street. It's called. It's in Waterbury. It's a bad street, and it's a row of like apartments, duplexes. So I'm in there. It's 2:00 in the morning. I have $20 to my name, and I'm trying to cop. And I copped from this guy who I had copped from before, but I didn't know that he had all of a sudden started using. So here I am at 2:00 in the morning, and I only got $20, and he steals it from me. So it rips me off, I guess is the best way to put it. So he rips me off. So what do? I try to start a fight with him. So me and him are tussling around, and next thing you know, somebody comes out of one of the apartments. He knew them. Now they're hitting me. Somebody came out of the next apartment. They're hitting me. So I ended up with about 25 people. I ended up in the hospital. Broke my nose, split my lip open, had 27 stitches between the two eyes, and got fixed up. Got 2 Percocets. Went out there onto the streets to get high again. In that kind of condition, couldn't even really see, But that's how I was being treated. That's how it was. When you run out of money, you run out of friends, and you run out of help. And at that point, you're a detriment to that way of life. I survived because I could talk. My mouth has kept me out of trouble. I was able to make people think that I could fight by being loud and boisterous and you better not mess with me. And I don't know if I've had 2 fights in my entire life. I can't even make believe like I fight good. All right, the only thing I can do is talk good about it. You learn to be very good. I learned to be a good talker, and that's how I survived. And I got lucky.
Yeah.
I got lucky. I got a lot of people. I'm sure I can. If I sit down with another piece of paper, I'm sure I've got at least 15 people that have died, and I'm pretty sure most of them are from heroin. It's a tough life. It's just.
Did you ever reconcile with your parents? Like, did you ever have any proper closure with them, or with the molester?
Okay, so yeah, I guess those are very important questions. I'm going to ask. I'm going to tell you these things. I'll start with George. Start with the molester. I have never said a word to him. We see each other even to this day.
Oh, for God's sakes.
probably 4, 5, 6 times a year. Had to come to some peace with George. I had to look at how George might have looked at this as a 14-year-old, a 15-year-old, a 16-year-old, because that's around the age he was in. I've come to the conclusion that that talking to him was probably not going to help me, and probably going to hurt him. Now he has a son who he raised very well. I paid attention to that as the years went on. I believe George was experimenting with me as much as I was experimenting with him. I mean, as much as he was molesting me, but that's how I looked at it. It's very uncomfortable for me to think about confronting him, and I don't know what I would gain. So I do what I do in a lot of things in life, is just let it go.
Do you think that George was molested and that he was passing it on?
And I don't want to know.
Because that's usually what it is.
I know. And I yeah, a lot of stuff just goes unsaid.
Yeah.
And you just have to let go, because sometimes holding on is more painful than letting go. I don't like that it happened, and I bet you that if I was to bring it to him, all he would do is apologize. I don't need his apology. I came to my own terms with my part in it. I'm not responsible for his part. That's going to be up to him and his God to deal with. I had to deal with my part of it. So that's how I dealt with George, my parents. So here's a God moment, if you'd like one. So when I got out, I was able to start my own construction company, and I did it with no business experience. But boy, I had a lot of construction experience. So, being the good addict I was, I thought all the money belonged to me. Now, I never had anything in my life because I've been living on the streets. So all of a sudden, I'm buying everything you could think of and never saving, never thinking that the phone's going to stop ringing someday. So I'm making tons of money. I'm making, a couple $1,000s a week. That after I pay my guys, I got a couple $1,000s, And just to show you how ego can get in your way, I would bring that money to meetings with me. And I would open up my wallet, and I would let everybody see that big amount of money as I ripped off $1 to put in the basket. They all thought I was cool because I had money. That's how you win friends, and that's how you do it on the streets. So NA was not a lot different than the streets. So my mom, what it came down to was that all of a sudden the work dried up, and now I couldn't pay rent. I'm clean about 8 years, 7 or 8, well maybe 5 years. I lose my vehicle, my insurance. I lost everything, and I thought I had to go back and put my tail between my legs and ask my mother if I could move in with her. So I did that. So I asked her, I said, Mom, here's what happened. Can I move in with you? And my mother, okay. So I moved in with her. And I stayed there until she died. But what transpired during that time is where God was. So because of how my life went, my mother had a hard time being my mother, and I had a hard time being her son. Well, God gave us that opportunity. Maybe I thought I was going there with my tail between my legs, but God was bringing me and my mother together to form a bond and a relationship. I got to mow the grass for her and fix everything, and she got to make the bed and make dinner for me, and we got to be friends, and we got to know each other, and they found out she had an aneurysm in her brain, and it wasn't any big deal. And she left in the morning to go have surgery, and I was in the bathroom when she left. She said it was supposed to be so easy that she said, "Hey, I'll see you later." "Okay, Mom, I'll be down after the surgery." And I got home from work, and my sister called and said, "Everything's fine. She's out of surgery." And then my sister called back and said, "Everything's not fine. She's a mess." And my mom died in the hospital, and I'm smiling because I was there for all of it. I didn't miss any of it, and I wasn't high, and I wasn't dirty, and I had brushed my teeth, and I had cleaned myself up, and I was there to hold her hand when they took her off life support, You watch him struggle to breathe, and then she died. And I had a personal. So that's how it ended with my mother. Now my parents had divorced. My dad picked up prostitution. He started messing around with prostitutes, and one day he thought the smart thing to do was to bring a couple of bags of heroin to one of the prostitutes that was smarter than my father, and my father brought her heroin to the prison, and they caught him, and almost went to prison for transferring drugs into a correctional facility out there at York, and so that ruined my father. We made him give my mother the house. They got divorced. Blah 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 blah. Before my mom. As conversations in the house would go by, she said, Bob, if anything ever happened to me, I would hope that you would bring your father back into the house. So the next day, the day after my mom died, we did the funeral, all that stuff. I went over to my dad's place and I said, it's time to come back home. And so me and my dad got to spend 2 years together. He lived with me. He didn't work. He was on so much medication, you wouldn't know what to, he couldn't really take care of himself that much. I was kind of a hostage for a couple of years for the most part. I guess you would say I was a hostage. To me, I was making amends. Again, making amends at somebody that I don't even know if I really owed him amends. I don't know. I just felt like I needed to be a good son. And I had been taught that I needed to be a good son. Let me tell you, it was important for my recovery that I become a good son and that I be a good son. When you decide to go from that side of the street to the other side of the street, you have to make some changes. You have to live like other people do. You have to find some compassion for other people. You have to find a different path. And so my dad stayed with me. We had a great time. He was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. So I called his doctor up. He was at wit's end. And the doctor said to me, he said, he said, sometimes we treat our pets better than we treat our family. He said, there's nothing I can do for your dad. He said, one thing I can do for your dad is to ease his pain. My dad hated pain medication. My dad thought pain medication was for weaklings. That's how my dad was. And so he refused to do that. So what he chose to do was stop taking his medication. I had the package from hospice. We went into his bedroom and we spent the next 5 days there. He was awake for like 3 of them, and the last 2 he wasn't, and then he died. So I was there for him.
That's amazing.
And you stayed clean during all of that.
All of it. And in this
Present.
recent thing.
That's huge.
That's huge. This recent thing with cancer. I had to make a real hard decision when
huge.
cancer came.
Right?
What am I going to do
Exactly.
for, I'm in recovery. It's not like I can go around swallowing a whole bunch of pills and stuff. I had to come up with some answers.
Right.
So I had to do some things that were contrary to what I had been learning for the last 14 years. If I guess I'd worked hard enough to be okay.
Yeah.
I don't think it was luck. I don't think I'm lucky enough to had gotten to this point. I think that I earned it. Yeah. I think I put the work in, and I think I listened to the right people, because there's a lot of people to listen to. You can listen to, there's a million opinions, there's a lot of them, but I needed somebody with a record, with a track record, I have a lot of friends with a lot of time,
Well, it sounds like you made a decision. You weren't going back there, no matter what.
No.
So.
No, I wasn't going back. That we talked about a little bit about the change in your brain. Here it is.
Yeah.
Here it is.
Right.
Back in the old days, like I said, I would get on my knees, I would be clean, and all of a sudden, all it would take would be one little thought about, geez, I wonder if I can get $20 here. And I didn't even realize that was the beginning of the thoughts. I already passed into I was going to use. I already knew it, and my body knew it, but my mind didn't know it yet, because I'm trying to fight it. Because I thought that I could, even though I was in part of the fellowship, I thought I could stop it on my own, because I got a little bit of clean time here now. I can say no. It never worked for me. I always relapse. The new thinking is relapse, homelessness, jail. I don't think I've gotten high in the last 10 years without handcuffs. It always ends in handcuffs for me. Always. I didn't mind, jail was just like the streets, just a little bit different, a few more rules, so I didn't mind it there, but man, I don't want my whole life to be marred by that. I mean, if I was to ever have like hours to tell you how I abandoned my children, and if I could tell you the deep sadness from the things that I've done, in order to get to recovery, you got to find something good about yourself, or else it's never going to work. And so that's how it worked for me. I just kept doing what they told me. You guys got to take the people that know what they're doing and just trust them. I know trust is the hardest. There's nothing harder for an addict than trust, because we're always stealing and using each other and taking advantage of each other. So trust isn't, I think I started stealing from my parents I knew how to get money out of my mom's wallet before I was probably 13 years old. I've always gravitated towards that kind of a thing, and now to be cash register honest all the time, every day. If I go to a place tomorrow and they give me more change, and I know it, and I don't do anything about it, I'm heading towards relapse. It's that simple. It's really that simple, because it's an inside job. What I've had to do is I've had to make myself believe that I'm okay. If I do things that are going to tell me that I'm not okay, then eventually it's going to unravel. There's no way to keep it going. It has to have a life of its own, and that's why helping other people is the only answer, because you have to justify that you're not that piece of crap anymore. Now I can sit by myself. I don't know if you ever struggled sitting by yourself.
Of course, we all do.
Right, but if
it's
you're an
normal.
addict with all that baggage, sitting by myself was like, I would rather pretty much pull my nails out one by one. Just don't make me be alone and think about all of this stuff. And now I can think of all of it, and how do I become not that guy? I work trying to get farther away from that guy. I am so far away from that guy that I know he's there, but he doesn't have the ability to walk anymore. I cut his legs off. Right now I automatically know that if I take one hit off of my drug of choice, then I'm going to be gone. And it became difficult with cancer when I had to make a decision of how I was going to deal with the pain of the cancer. I had that, and I was on sleep medication, and I don't know if addicts should be on sleep medication. It did not work for me.
That's very difficult.
Yep, it didn't work for me. So I had to make a decision of, and somebody had mentioned, trying marijuana, and here I am, I got like 12, 14 years clean. Are you kidding me? I'm a big dude in Narcotics Anonymous. I'm well known. I got tapes. I got all kinds of stuff. And now you want me to go smoke pot? Everybody told me that if I do that, the next drug, it's a gateway.
And
so here I am, 3 years later. 3 years later, okay? Don't even think about that. It's not part of my life anymore. What I'm thinking about now is how do I sleep through a night without all the extra
addictive
without
medications.
all the extra crap.
Yeah.
Without all the side effects. Ambien, I woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning, outdoors one day. I woke up 1 o'clock in the morning cooking, and I had no idea what I was doing. My wife's like, "What are you going to kill us all?" It wasn't working. I have the medical marijuana card, and I use it, and I use it daily, and I use it like I'm supposed to. It's not a drug. It's medicine. It's medicine, not a drug. You want to use it for a drug, you can use it for a drug, but I don't use it for a drug.
It's the intention.
I use it for what it does to help me. Right. I don't need a guy anymore to be outgoing and talkative, and I don't need that.
You changed your relationship with it.
I've completely changed it. I haven't thought about smoking crack, and we've talked about it for 2 days now. I've had a conversation with you earlier about it. We've talked about it all day today. Yeah. I would have been, listen, we got to end this. We've been talking long enough, because I've got to go. because I would be sitting here and I wouldn't be able to concentrate. You know, the fact that I can keep my brain going in the same direction tells you that I'm not thinking about that. I'm not going to jail today. It's just not going to happen.
Well, it was really educational for me to hear that you're able to keep everything under good control, and yet you're able to use the marijuana, the cannabis, medical cannabis, properly and according to direction, and just for what you needed for your condition. So that's really reassuring, because a lot of people out there wonder, am I going to relapse, or am I going to have new bad habits coming up, or things like that. And doctors too, we're worried. We don't want to set you on a wrong path.
Right.
That's totally not what we're about.
No.
So it was really amazing for me to hear, well, not only your whole story, but also that part of things.
Yeah, it's amazing. Last night I went to bed at 10 o'clock. I got up at 6. Nothing happened in the middle. I didn't wake up at 2, 3, 4. I used to wake up exhausted because I just couldn't get any sleep. My legs were killing me because of the restless leg syndrome. I couldn't get any sleep. I slept 8 hours last night. I expect that 8 hours, and because if you don't sleep well, if you're somebody that's in this and you don't sleep well, you're not living well. You need proper rest in order to fight. If I start sleeping 2, 3, 4 hours, my brain's going to go a little bit. I'm going to start thinking.
Everybody.
Yeah, I'm going to start thinking. Sleep is. Now I got to work on the next part. Food. Food's my issue now. I struggle to not eat candy. I struggle to. I eat right up until I go to bed, and then I wake up feeling lousy. It's like, Bob, you know this. You understand this, Bob. I always, much drugs as I could, felt lousy. Drugs, lousy. I understand that. And I got rid of that lousy by getting rid of the drugs. So now it's getting rid of. Now I've had to get rid of candy. I've been 3 months without candy, but in order.
Sugar is as addictive as cocaine. So
and that's the ultimate. The ultimate goal is the sugar, because guess what ship I changed ships on the Titanic. Seats on the Titanic. I went from candy to baked goods. See, somebody said to me, Bob, what do you like more, candy or baked goods? And I said, well, I like candy way more than baked goods. They said, well, switch to baked goods because it'll be easier to give them up. It made sense to me. So, I think I just came from a baked good run. It's out in my car. I got some cookies, but now I stop eating at 9 o'clock.
good.
See, that's what recovery's done for me. That's what being in recovery has done for me. I can set a goal and actually do it.
Nice.
And it's not to rip that person off, or it's not to take advantage of that person, or assault that person because you need to feel good about yourself. I don't have to do any of that anymore. I feel just as good about me as you feel about you.
Yeah.
And I always was a sneaker looker.
Yeah.
I always looked at feet. I don't look at anybody's feet anymore. I don't really
Good.
care what you wear.
You hold your head up high.
I don't really care. And even with clothes, when I first got clean, and I had that construction thing, well, guess what I did? Clothes. Because I had to look good on the outside.
Yeah.
I must have had 50 pairs of sneakers. I had jewelry, and geez, he's never got the same pair. People would talk about you because here I am hanging around with a lot of people that don't have jobs, or it was easy to look good in front of them. And I think I got 2 pairs of sneakers. You see what lousy jeans I brought in here? I would have never got caught like this in public, not even in public, let alone with that thing 5 years ago. Never.
Bob, it's like your priorities have changed.
Lots.
Indeed.
That's
It's weird that you never think, an addict doesn't think they can get there, though. They really, don't they?
Oh, they're limited.
Most don't think they can get there.
Right.
And I didn't. I didn't think I could get there.
But you did.
If you really, and if you really wanted to know how we affect other people, then you bring in the people that we affected. Someday you may want to do that. You should see what it's like for my sister and brother going from having to hide. When I came into a house, I don't know if when I came into a house, it shut down. Like if I walked into my parents' house, I'll tell you a quick story. If I walked into my parents' house, everything was put away. Wallets, purses, everything. So here's one of the saddest stories, and I'll probably cry, but people need to hear this because this is important. So So I'm estranged from my family. My mother lives alone. Not allowed at the house, but she would make me something to eat. So we got in the habit of her rolling a Pepsi down the driveway and throwing me a ham sandwich in a plastic bag when it got to that point when I couldn't feed myself at all. So we got to do that. So one day I walked up to the house and she wasn't in the living room. So you know what I did? I walked in the house real quick. I got there. All of a sudden comes the Martin battle. She's here and I'm here. I'm trying to get to her wallet. She knows it. She's trying to keep me from it. So we're having a conversation and I'm trying to get her to move and she's trying to get me out of the house. I win. I get her to go in the other room. I go, and this time I know I don't have much time, so I just grab the entire wallet and I put it in my pants. She comes out of the room and all of a sudden I had to leave real fast. Mom, all right, you win, Mom, I gotta go. I take off. I start walking down the street. All of a sudden I hear a car start up. And I know it's my mother. She pulls up to me. She rolls down the window and she says, Bob, she says, I know how bad you're hurting. She says, I know. She said, but I also know you stole my wallet, and I need you to give it back to me. And I said, Ma, I didn't steal your wallet. Now, we both knew that I stole her wallet. I said, Ma, I didn't steal your wallet. She started crying, and she said, Bob, I know. She said, but you have other means. I'm your mother. You can't do this again. And I said, Mom, I don't have your wallet. And she rolled up the windows, and she drove away. She drove away. She knew I had it. I knew I had it. I couldn't. I could have, but I didn't. That's my life. That's what I had to fight back from.
You made it up to her later.
That's the stuff you have to fight your way back from.
Yeah.
You can't get out of it. There's no way around that stuff.
No.
Don't try to go, if you're in recovery, don't try to go around things. It didn't work out there, and it certainly isn't going to work in recovery. You got to face all of it. I thought I shut that off.
That's all right.
Okay. So, sorry, it's a very passionate subject for me, recovery.
Oh,
it's
don't
the most
apologize.
important.
This
Thank
has
you.
been just so educational for us and enlightening, and all for those families out there that are living through the same thing. I'm sure you gave them some good insight.
I hope so.
You know, and hope for addicts.
Right.
It's possible.
Yeah.
It's possible.
Yeah. The world needs to know that it's possible.
Yeah, you know,
So thank you.
I've had some friends. Now, it's another interesting thing. Now, I've had some friends. I have a friend whose daughter overdosed and died just a little while ago. She was 17, and you know, we talk. I can help people like that who their family
Yeah.
have died. You know, I wish there was some kind of business I could be involved in where I could do that.
There is.
Yeah, but you gotta go to college for 50 years.
Community Speaks Out. Do you know those guys?
No, I don't know.
They're right here in Groton.
Oh, really? I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. It's Tammy and Joe Delacruz that started.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, they're the shooting at Sully's.
Yes.
That was her son.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, so I would connect you guys because
Okay.
you could definitely help them. This is wonderful.
Yeah, this is what I'm good at.
And also, what's the other, remember the,
Aware?
yes, Aware Recovery
Right.
Care.
Yeah.
They were another wonderful team that you should probably speak with, Bob.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
going to be in touch with you, so
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you can help me out, I like volunteering, and you know, I would like to spend my life doing this. This is where I'm most comfortable.
Absolutely.
I mean, I do all right at Ocean Beach and the maintenance, but really my passion is to try to make somebody else smile like I get to smile.
Yeah.
I'm lucky.
Well, I'm sure we'll be working together, Bob. There's no doubt.
Good.
We have many projects underway.
I'm tired just listening to all of it.
Well, we have so many wonderful people around us. Really, we're very blessed.
I felt very comfortable with you guys, so
No.
I'm in the right
Thank
spot.
you.
God always puts me in the right place.
Right.
You know, if you wait, if you
Yeah.
just quietly wait, and that's
Yeah.
another thing addicts struggle with, patience.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
when you're standing, next time you're standing in line, next time you're standing in, that's what I had to practice, was standing in line at the grocery store
Yeah.
and not being mad. The next thing you know, had patience. And
There you
then
go. Oh, thank
Just
you.
weird.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Bob Martin. Wonderful, wonderful interview. Thank you.
Yes.
And Julie Banks, our awesome panelist, and to Melissa Bouchard, who's not feeling well today. Hopefully she feels better soon. And a big thank you to Lois, who moved to Philadelphia, so she's not here with us in person, but she'll be here at a future
We love you,
episode.
Lois.
We love you guys. And the Franks and SEC TV, thank you so much for all of your support and allowing us to do this for the community. Thank you all.